So till now you have basic idea what is a web service, and today's class would be on how to test web services using SOAPUI tool. So SOAPUI has a free version as well as a proprietary version. So we will be using the free version for our today's class, and let's have a brief recap of what is a web service. So when we talk about web services, there are a couple of things which come up to the mind. So what is a web service? Again, it's a web application. A web application which has some predefined business functionality, right? So it's a web application which has a predefined business functionality. Let's say like if I want to authenticate a credit card, so see, I don't have to write the code itself. So there must be some organization which is already doing this thing. So I just have to call that web services and get that particular credit card authenticated. So let's say there is a online shopping portal, Gap is there, Macy's is there. So they are not writing the this functionality on their own. They are borrowing the functionality from somebody else who is already in the field, and they have created a web application to solve this purpose. So web services is nothing. This is a simple web application. So there are different types of web services as well. So we know that there are some RPC style web services. So we have XML RPC, and then we have SOAP, right? So in today's tutorial we would be talking about how to test SOAP based web services, and then we have resource oriented. So Sampath would be taking it this thing, resource oriented web services, or we call them source oriented RESTful web services. Okay, so today we would be talking about SOAP based web services. So what is SOAP based web services? In SOAP based web services, what we make, we create a kind of, you can say, envelope around the message in which we are sending to the service owner, and the response is also received in the same kind of an envelope. There's a particular standard in which the request is being given and the response is being received. So both are XML based, and the request is also XML and the response is also XML, and there is a format, there is a particular format. So whoever is writing a SOAP based web service, they have to follow that particular format or that particular protocol. So let's see what is that particular format or protocol. So we call that protocol as, or you can say, the language in which all the necessary rules are written. That is called WSDL, which is nothing but web service description language. So if you have a SOAP based web service, so there must be some language which is understood by both client and the, you can say, the service owner. So we have consumer and you can say owner of the web service, which agrees upon this a standard in which request and response are being given. Agrees upon some standard in which request and response is being exchanged, and that standard is written in WSDL, web service description language. So the first thing which is exchanged between consumer and owner is WSDL, right? So here they would be writing, okay, I have this web services, this is available on this particular server, and these are the operations on which are exposed. These are the data types which are exposed. So let's see what is the structure of this then. So we can use some free web services. So there are some owners which have provided free web services. You can always Google and find it out. So I will write here free web services. So there is a website, this is maintained by Microsoft, web services x.net, and you can see here there are lots of web services which have been provided here. So we can use any one of these, or if you want, there are some other web services also. There is one actionscript.org. Here you can see so many web services. Convert pressure density, so you can try these web services. If you see here all these web services, what is exchange? WSDL is being given. So let's see, let's download this WSDL and see what is the structure of this. So WSDL is generally prepared by the service owner, and it distributes the WSDL, or it exposes to the WSDL to all its customers. So if it's a free web services, it would be something like this, and if it's a proprietary, then it would be exchanged in your service level agreement document, right? So which will actually tells the WSDL, the format, the the maintenance rules, all these things, right? So let's use any one of these. So we can try this one, or we can go to the Microsoft website also. Let's do currency converters. So if you see here, what does currency converters do? It actually converts the currency from one country to another. So we have certain formats, and there are certain you can say operations which are exposed. So operations are nothing or the methods, if you know what in a programming language, there are certain methods which have some arguments. So operations are nothing but methods, you can say. And let's see what's the format of this WSDL. Say WSDL schema location. I'm just copy pasting it and opening in my browser. Okay. So whenever you want to read a WSDL, try to read it from the bottom. So it might look quite overwhelming. So you don't have to actually worry about that, because there are only few you can say elements which are important. So others are child elements of that. So the first most important is the binding, or you can say first is service and then it comes binding. So what is service expose? So if you see this, the one which I have selected, it starts from here and ends here. So it says the name of the service as a currency converter. The name of this web service is currency converter. So it says the name is currency converter, and then it gives you some port. So the first most important part of this still is service, which mentions the name, service name, which is an attribute, and the one of the child elements, the most important, is port. So what does actually port means? So port means the actual location of the you can say the URI on which the service is being provided. So port is nothing but the URI location of the service. So what is URI location? That means the server at which the location of the server at which the service is exposed. So if you just go back and see, here it says, if you see here, we have location http www.webservices.net, and this is the location. So there are, you can say, 1, 2, 3, 4 ports here. So all the 4 ports are used to expose services for different protocols. So let's see what does that means. So after here we have 4 ports. So there is an important interview questions. They'll ask you why different ports are used for exposing the web services. So one of the reasons is, as we have seen, that different ports are used to expose different protocols on which a web service is being exposed. Different protocols, or this is one of the reasons. Another reasons could be different ports may be used to expose service on different platforms. Okay, so what does this mean? So it is quite possible. See, all the web services, they are platform independent, they are language independent, but definitely the performance of the service greatly is increased if the consumer and the owner, they talk on the same platform. So let's say I have I'm working on Linux platform, so it is quite easy for me to use a service which is already there or exposed on Linux platform, right? So that is another reason of exposing the service to different ports. Yes, the same service is being used for different ports, and there is another reason. There is something called you can say authentication. So all these services, if they are authenticated from the consumer, so anybody cannot just go and use that service unless and until it's a free service. It has to authenticate. So if you have seen in the SOAP envelope, there is something called header. Header is used to authenticate that service, right? So on different platforms, the method of authentication is different. So I can write here, on different platforms, method of authenticating a service is different. Right? So the most common method, sometimes it is used called user token, or there is string token. So user token means that you are providing some kind of you can say username and password. See, like let's say that I am a consumer, so I would be provided by some username and password, which I would be writing it in my SOAP envelope header, and then I will be sending the request, so that when it is received by the server, it can safely assume that this request has been coming from a authenticated user. Or what I can do, I can use a string token. String token means a set of characters which is used to authenticate. So it's kind of password, you can say, so which actually includes some encrypted information. So these are actually 2 types of authentication which are used, and different platforms uses different types of authentication. So this is another reason of exposing the same service on different ports, and the location of those ports are provided in the service element. Okay. So let's move on to the next part. So if you scroll up here, you can see here we have 4 ports. So we have there is one service which is using SOAP protocol 1.1. Then we have SOAP 1.2. So SOAP 1.2 is the latest standard. Then we have service exposed through GET request, GET protocol, and POST protocol also. So we have GET method and POST method, and we have SOAP and SOAP 1.2. So we have four, you can say, ports which are exposing the same service. And it depends on your application how you want to use the service. For example, let's say I am using the same service. Let me just go here. So here actually there are few services which are using, I'll tell you which protocol is used. I can actually test this web service also. So let me see if there is any service for which they have given some. Okay, even here there would be something for currency converter also. Okay, so see, if I click on this method, service description. Okay, for this they haven't given a post. Okay, there is post. So if you see here, if I'm using a form to use this service, so I would simply say, let's say I want from Yemen to Zimbabwe dollar. So I would write here by ER, and I'm writing here CWD. So I'm just testing the web services, and it is using POST protocol. So it would use this particular binding, the POST binding, right? So it depends. I can use this services through a web portal also, or I can use this services as maybe directly through my application. So it depends how I'm using the service. Then I would be using the corresponding protocol. So let me just invoke the web service, and it says, okay, I need to mention the value also, I guess. From currency, okay. It's not giving. Let me just use something else. So let's say Australian dollar to INR. AUD to INR. Okay, now it is giving me some value. Okay, so it is telling me that if I convert INR to Australian dollar, it's going to be 54.3326. So I'm testing the web services, or I can use a form to use this web services, then I will be using POST protocol. If I'm creating a SOAP envelope, so if I'm using some API, let's say I'm creating an application in Java, and then I want to use that particular web services, and my application is creating a SOAP envelope, then I would be using the SOAP port, right? So my second is binding. Binding tells you, the binding element tells you the exact port. It's the concrete protocol which is being used. So let us go to that WSDL again. If you see here, binding, right? So it says that this is an HTTP post, and it uses the POST protocol, and the location is again the same location. So if we have the binding for every protocol, so if here are 1, 2, 3, 4 protocols, so there would be 4 elements. This is for POST. If you see, this is for GET, and this is for SOAP 1.1, and there would be one for SOAP 1.2 also. So we have 4 bindings for 4 ports or the protocols, right? Then if we move up, then we have port type. What does port type means? Port type means the operations which are exposed through the service. Operations which are exposed through the service. So here in our case, there is just one operation. So if you see here, there is just one operation, conversion rate or get conversion rate. Let's find out some other application which has maybe more than one operations. So if you see this web services, we have two operations, get GeoIP and get GeoIP context. So it gives the brief description also. So get GeoIP enables you to easily look up countries by IP addresses, and there is another one. So they are providing different functionalities. So every functionality in a web service is exposed through different operations. Okay. Although the URI for that service would be same, but there would be different operations. So I can use any of these operations there. Okay. So here we have just one operation. So this is the port type, and it says the operation. The name of the operation, if you see here, is the conversion rate. Okay. So we have just one operation. Okay. So for every, you can say, every protocol, we have this particular operation. So for the post, for get, and for SOAP, we have same conversion rate protocol, because this is the same protocol, but the service is definitely the same. Then we have message. So what does message means? Message means, so every service has certain arguments. So in this one, we have from currency and to currency. Going back to our previous one. Yeah. So here we have two parameters, from currency and to currency. So messages means that there can be input message, there could be output message. So it tells you there are two input parameters, from currency and to currency. The parameters for each operation. So here we have just one operation, so parameters for each operation. Here the parameters, it tells you, see here, for all the protocols, it says there is a parameter from currency and there is a parameter to currency, right? Okay. Then there are input parameters and there are output parameters, right? So output parameters are nothing but like the result in which it is formed. So result is actually coming up in the form of a, you can say a decimal number. So when I'm converting from one currency to another currency, so the result is in you can say a double type. So if you see here, it says the conversion rate SOAP out. SOAP in means the input parameter, SOAP out means the output parameter. And if you see the element type here, for input, the element type is the conversion rate. Okay, so we have to follow the input type as a conversion rate, and the output is given in this format. So output, if you see for all this, is conversion rate response. So there is another element called type element. So after message there is type. So type tells you the data type for each parameter for every operation. Type, it tells you the parameters. So we have from currency and to currency, there is a particular format like AUD or INR. So they are fixed parameter types, and then the response is coming as a decimal. So Type tells you the data types for all the operations, the input message and the output message as well. Let us map it up with our currency converter. So I would say we have service, then we have port type, then we have a message, and we have type. Okay, so service means the actual URI. So it would be something like HTTP web services x.net, something like currency converter .asmx. So this is the actual URI where the service is exposed. Okay, then port type, as I said, the operations. So the name of the operation is conversion rate. Okay, conversion rate. Then for the conversion rate, we have two input parameters, from currency and to currency. Okay, and one output parameter which is of type decimal. There is no name of that parameter, so you can say just parameter. And the type of this parameter is defined in some format. Here the format is like, I can give you just an example. So the format is, it has to be a part of this enumerations, AUD and INR, and the output format is a decimal. I hope this business structure is clear now. So here if you see, the input parameter is of type conversion rate and the output parameter is of rate response. So rate response is a double, which is a decimal point. The input parameter, if you see, is the name is a currency and it is of string type, and it has to be a part of this numeration. Enumeration means that only these are allowed. Apart from these, values are not allowed. So if I just randomly write anything, it won't accept it. It says that the input parameter has to be a part of this thing. Okay, so these are the various things which forms a BizDel. Okay, and in the first section you can see these are various namespaces which are being used. So all the namespaces, there are some standard namespaces from W3org, and there are some namespaces from web services x.net. This is actually the you can say the server on which the service is hosted. Okay, and it also gives you the sequence. So the first parameter would be from currency and the second parameter would be to currency. So now let us see how to use this in SOAPUI and how to test this web service. So to download SOAPUI, you can go to soapui.org. So we can go to soapui.org. So it has all the documents. If you you can go back home and you can just browse through the websites, how to do all kinds of testing here, what is a step-by-step procedure. So there's a pro version and there is one free version. So we would be using a free version only, and most of the companies are using free versions. So you can go to download SOAPUI. And we have to find, there are plugins for NetBeans and Eclipse also, so we won't be using those. So we would be using the SOAPUI ID itself. Here if you see, the latest one is 4.5.1, so you click on this thing. Okay, so you have standalone zip also, but I would recommend you to please download this thing. You can download this, if you have 64-bit, you can download this one. If you have 32-bit, you can download this one. So any of these would work for you, and if you have Linux machine or a Mac machine, there is a separate downloads. So you can download these things from the machine from this website, and you can simply install it. The installation is very simple. And after you are done with the installation, it asks you, while you are going through the installation, it asks you whether you want to install tutorials or not. So please install tutorials as well, because it has some sample applications also. So once you have downloaded and you run the application, it would be something like this. And you can import the sample document here. So it would be in tutorials, and SOAPUI project, sample project. So I will be going through the sample project also, and we will be importing the currency converter WSDL also here. So first thing, if you have to test a web service, so we need a WSDL. Okay. So let's say I need to test this web services. So I need the WSDL. So I'll just copy this WSDL location. And I'll ask that, okay, new SOAPUI project. I will give a name as a currency converter. And it says initial WSDL, so I'll just copy paste this one and press OK. So you can see here automatically the two protocols or two bindings for this are there. These are called interfaces, and just double click on this one. Okay. So if you see here, it is giving me the path to that WSDL. So I can see WSDL here also, or I can see WSDL in SOAPUI itself. So you can actually just get rid of this. I don't want to use this one. So I will be using just this interface. So I have to test my services through SOAP 1.2 only. So I will be just using this one. Okay. And if you see, there is overview, then we have service endpoints. Service endpoints means that endpoint is nothing but the location of the server or the location of the service on which that service is exposed. So between there could be different endpoints for the service. So here we have just one endpoint, which is the one on which the service is located. And sometimes this endpoints have some username and password also. So in our case, there is no username and password because it's a free web service. So in case you have to test your web services on different endpoints, then you need to add those endpoints here. So endpoint is nothing. It would be a URL to your web service. Okay. Then here also you can see the web WSDL content. So it gives you the service. This is the name of the service, and there are 4 ports on which it is exposed. Then we have bindings. Bindings, we know the exact protocol. So we have SOAP GET, POST, SOAP 1 and SOAP 1.2. Port types means the operations which are exposed. So for all the operations, for all the protocols, we have just one operation, conversion rate. Messages means the parameters. So for we have input parameter, in means input, out means output. So for SOAP again we have input parameters. There are 2 input parameters and 1 output parameter. Then schema, global elements, these are actually the types. So conversion rate is of type this. Conversion rate response is of type decimal. If you see this yellow line, and double you already know. And what is conversion rate? It's a complex type, and its type is currency. Currency is defined here, which is again it's a string restriction, and rate response is, as we know,